Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. I am Dr. Mohibullah Wazir and the topic is occulomotor nerve. Occulomotor nerve, it is third cranial nerve. It is third cranial nerve, and note it is the nerve of the midbrain. Look, this is the cerebrum, and then is the diencephalon, and then this part, you look over here, this is the midbrain, the connecting stalk between the diencephalon and the hindbrain. This is the midbrain. The third nerve is the nerve of the midbrain, and the fourth nerve is the nerve of the midbrain. Okay, its name indicates the occulomotor nerve is the nerve of the eyeball. It is the nerve of the eye, oculo. Okay, and it is motor nerve. The nuclei of the occulomotor nerve are: number one, motor nucleus, and number two, the parasympathetic nucleus of the third nerve. The motor nucleus of the occulomotor nerve and parasympathetic nucleus both lies in the midbrain, and it lies anterior to the cerebral aqueduct. Look, you see, look, this is the third ventricle. This connecting line, this is the cerebral aqueduct or aqueduct of Sylvius, and this you can see, this is the midbrain, and then this is the pons. Both the nuclei, it lies over here just anterior to the cerebral aqueduct, the motor nucleus as well as the parasympathetic nucleus. Now you look at this cross section over here of the midbrain, and you look over here, this is the anterior side and this is the posterior side. On the posterior side of the midbrain, you can see these two colliculi, superior colliculus and inferior colliculus, making combinedly what is called a tectum of the midbrain. Alright, now this is the anterior side. So you look over here, this is the cerebral aqueduct which connects the third ventricle with the fourth ventricle. Anterior to this, you can see this big nucleus. Okay, look, this nucleus. This is the motor nucleus of the occulomotor nerve. And posterior to that, this small nucleus, this one, this you see, this is the parasympathetic nucleus of the motor nerve. Both are present at the midbrain at the level of the superior colliculus, lying just anterior in the gray matter of the midbrain, just anterior to the cerebral aqueduct or aqueduct of Sylvius. Then anterior to that, over here you can see, this is the red nucleus of the midbrain. Alright. Now, the motor nucleus of the third nucleus, it is somatic efferent. It is somatic efferent or somatic motor. That is, it is motor for the skeletal muscle, for the somatic muscles. And the parasympathetic nucleus, which lies just posterior, look to this motor nucleus, this parasympathetic nucleus lying posterior to this is also called as Edinger-Westphal nucleus. This is Edinger-Westphal nucleus. The cells present in it, that is parasympathetic in function. The cells present in this motor nucleus, that is somatic motor in function. Now, what happens that the cells from this motor nucleus and from this parasympathetic nucleus both come out, and now look over here, these two, look, one is this one coming from the motor nucleus and this from the Edinger-Westphal nucleus. This crosses through this red nucleus and then come out on the ventral surface of the midbrain between the two cerebral peduncles. Over here, one is this third nucleus, one is another this third nucleus in the interpeduncular fossa, and you can see it over here. Now again look, this is the diencephalon, this is the pons, and this is the midbrain, and this nerve that you see over here, this small, this one, look, this nerve that you see over here, this is this nerve, this is the third nerve, alright, this is the first, this is the second, and this is the third nerve lies in the interpeduncular fossa. Now this third nerve comes out of the midbrain over here, look, make clear, this is one peduncle, this is another, it comes over here between these two peduncles on the ventral surface in the interpeduncular fossa. While note one special point that the trochlear nerve, it comes from the posterior surface of the midbrain. It comes out from the midbrain on the posterior surface. And note, this is the only nerve that comes from the posterior surface. Now this third nerve now travels laterally and anteriorly. And now note the point, it travels over here, look, again, now note the point, this is the skull, this is the skull, look, this is the skull, and now look, from this midbrain, then the third nerve, it travels laterally and superiorly over here, and over here this third nerve on this side, and on this side it passes between the superior cerebellar and posterior cerebral arteries, and it reaches over here, and you know over here lies the cavernous sinus, and this third nerve now enters into the cavernous sinus, traveling in the lateral wall of the cavernous sinus along with the fourth nerve and along with the ophthalmic division of the trigeminal nerve. Over here, note the point that in the cavernous sinus, you know, lies the internal carotid artery. Internal carotid artery is being surrounded by a plexus of sympathetic nerves. Then the occulomotor nerve, while passing from over here, at this time the occulomotor nerve consists of two types of fibers. Number one, motor fibers for the skeletal muscles of the eye, and number two, preganglionic parasympathetic fibers from the Edinger-Westphal nucleus for the smooth muscles of the eye. Where this nerve travels from over here through the cavernous sinus, it takes some fibers from this carotid plexus, and this plexus is the plexus of sympathetic nerve. And now when the occulomotor nerve comes out of the cavernous sinus, it is now having three types of fibers. Again, the motor fibers for the skeletal muscle from the motor nucleus, the parasympathetic fibers from the Edinger-Westphal nucleus for the smooth muscle of the eye, and it also now consists of these sympathetic fibers which are taken by the occulomotor nerve from the plexus of nerves present around the internal carotid artery inside the cavernous sinus. And now this occulomotor nerve at the anterior end of this cavernous sinus, it divides into two divisions, that is superior division and inferior division, into two divisions like this. And now you look over here, these two divisions then enters into the orbit through this superior orbital fissure. Look, this one is the superior orbital fissure. It enters into the orbit through this superior orbital fissure. You note it. The two divisions of the occulomotor nerve now enters into the orbit through this superior orbital fissure. And now you look over here. Look, this you can see, this is the occulomotor nerve. It passes into the cavernous sinus. Coming out of the cavernous sinus divides into two divisions, and after in the cavernous sinus it has taken sympathetic fibers as well. Sorry. Now it divides into two divisions. Oh, look, this is the superior one and this is the inferior one. The superior division of the occulomotor nerve, it passes upward superiorly and it supplies this superior rectus, and it also supplies the skeletal muscle part of this levator palpebrae superioris. You look, this is palpebrae, eyelid, and this is levator palpebrae superioris muscle. The skeletal muscle part of levator palpebrae superioris muscle, it is supplied by this superior division, and the fibers are coming from the motor nucleus or somatic efferent nucleus of the third nerve present in the midbrain. Now the sympathetic fiber which this nerve has taken in the cavernous sinus, it also travels over here in the superior division and supplies the smooth muscle part of levator palpebrae superioris. Note this point. This muscle, the upper eyelid elevator, levator palpebrae superioris, is unique by the fact that it is having skeletal muscle fibers and smooth muscle fibers. The skeletal muscle part of this muscle is supplied by the occulomotor nerve, while the smooth muscle part are Miller's muscle, that is also called as Miller's muscles. It is the smooth M-A-L-L Miller's muscle. It is the smooth muscle part of the levator palpebrae superioris. It is supplied by the sympathetic nerves, which are actually coming from the cervical chain of the sympathetic chain and entering into the skull along with the internal carotid artery. And note the point, it is these sympathetic fibers, if get damaged, the levator palpebrae superioris muscle is partially paralyzed and there is drooping of the eyelid, and the patient will not be able completely to elevate the upper eyelid, and that is the typical of Horner syndrome. That is because of sympathetic. Okay. While look, the inferior division, this inferior division, it comes over here, it supplies the inferior oblique, the inferior rectus, it supplies the medial rectus, it supplies the inferior oblique muscles as well. And while the parasympathetic fibers, it separate from, note this point, the fibers of the occulomotor nerve which are coming from the Edinger-Westphal nucleus or accessory oculomotor nucleus. These fibers travel along with the oculomotor nerve, enters into the orbit by passing through this fibrous ring. The oculomotor nerve, both divisions passes into the orbit by passing through this fibrous ring, and then these parasympathetic fibers, what happens? Look, these parasympathetic fibers, it leaves the oculomotor nerve. It leaves the oculomotor nerve, and look, over here you can see this ganglion. This is the ciliary ganglion. And these occulomotor nerve fibers you can see, which are coming from the Dinger-Westphal nucleus, it leaves this superior division through the long ciliary nerve and enters into this superior ganglion, this the ciliary ganglion, it relay over here. After that, the postganglionic fibers originate from this ciliary ganglion. You can see these branches, these are called as short ciliary nerves, and these short ciliary nerves, which are the parasympathetic postganglionic fibers, after relay in the ciliary ganglion, these supplies, number one, the sphincter pupillae muscle, that is, it causes constriction of the muscles of the pupil. And number two, it supplies the ciliary body, which are the muscles used for accommodation, when the subject is coming to and fro toward the eye. It is the ciliary muscle that causes continuously accommodation if the subject is coming near to the eye or coming away from the eye. This ciliary muscle causes accommodation. So in this way, note the point that the oculomotor nerve is number one. It is motor for the skeletal muscles of the extraocular muscle of the eye, but the extraocular muscles are 6 in number. All the extraocular muscles of the eye are being supplied by oculomotor nerve except the SO4, that is superior oblique by the 4, and LR6, that is lateral rectus by the 6. Otherwise, the superior rectus, the inferior rectus, the medial rectus, and inferior oblique, these 4 are being supplied by the oculomotor nerve. Then secondly, the oculomotor nerve, through its parasympathetic fibers coming from the Dinger-Westphal nucleus, and these fibers come into the orbit along with the oculomotor nerve, leave the oculomotor nerve, relay in the ciliary ganglion, and then the postganglionic fiber, it supplies, number one, the pupillary constrictor muscles, and number two, the ciliary body muscles, the muscles of the ciliary muscles for accommodation. And note another point. Look, if this is the midbrain and this is a Dinger-Westphal nucleus, over here is the tactile nucleus. Then the fibers coming from the optic tract and coming to this tactum, it is being connected to both of the Dinger-Westphal nucleus. In this way, from this one, that is, if from this tactum, both the Dinger-Westphal nucleus are being connected. That's why if light is being put on one eye, the stimulus comes over here, reaches over here, and from this both Dinger-Westphal nucleus stimulated. That's why it is the mechanism. If light is put in one eye, both the people are being constricted. This is conceptual eye reflex. It is because of this reason. Okay, this is all about the oculomotor nerve, and I hope you have got it.